When it comes to starting a fight, causing chaos, or defending, there is nobody better than the heavy class. The gadgets on this class are some of the most impactful for winning team fights as well. A simple, well-placed RPG, a properly timed dome shield, and a well-placed C4 can be all the difference between a win and a loss for an entire game. I'm going to cover all the roles that heavy plays, what aspects of the kit plays into said roles, break down some loadouts, and explain their playstyle and how it differs from one another, along with a few clips with a breakdown of how the roles play into the playstyle of heavy. So let's get into the roles first. We're going to start with the role of frontline. We can also refer to this as the tank role. When playing this class, you want to be the first one into the fight, getting entry damage, tanking shots for your team, and getting right into the enemy's face. You are essentially providing an opening for your team to follow up. The next role is to stall, with the ability to move cash outs, set up defenses, play for drop, and even move enemies. You have multiple ways to prevent enemies from stealing the cash out. With your large HP count, you should be the first one ready to jump on that cash out and to stall any steals that are happening. Third on the list of roles is the protector. With access to multiple shields, you can really make use of them in order to protect your team and yourself. A good heavy will always take into consideration where his teammates are. You also need to watch their health pools very closely so that you know when to swoop in and shield them with whatever you got. A last role for heavy is the shot caller. A more simple role to comprehend. When a fight starts, you are typically the first one in, so you need to call what target to focus. You should know what everyone's HP is after hitting them with your entry burst, especially if you land a really nice RPG or something. Calling out who is low and who is the target to chase is kind of on you. So let's cover frontline and how some of the kit plays into this first. The most obvious being the 350 HP pool. Very good for tanking. The specs we have a lot of great options here. Mesh Shield, Winch Claw, and Charge and Slam, all great for getting the first picks, getting into the fight safely, and creating openings for your team, such as Winch. You can pull an enemy in, which can basically just be an instant kill for your team. Charge and Slam can delete someone, or even create an opening in a wall to then have your team push and fight through. Mesh Shield allows your team to get a ton of free damage while you push the enemy. The goo gun is a little more niche, but goo locking someone by shooting goo at them can also provide a good opening for your team. It's essentially a form of CC. For gadgets, we can take some potential damage away from both ourselves and our teammates, such as Barricade and Dome. These provide fantastic ways to allow you and your team a safer entry into a fight. C4 can create great openings. Place it on a wall to open up an angle enemies won't be watching. Place it on the enemies for entry damage. Or if you can predict where enemies are going to be moving, you could potentially bait them in and combo with an RPG for some free bursts. And the last bit of utility being the RPG. One of the overall best tools for both starting and ending a fight. A well-placed RPG can be all it takes to win a fight. Now for the role of stalling, it is very important that we understand the concept and logic behind this role. When you stall a steal, this provides more time for your team to correctly prepare for the upcoming fight, instead of just rushing straight onto the point and fighting the team, which ends up just kind of being a 50-50 trade scenario. We want to weigh the odds in a favor for ourselves. An explosive on the point to drop it, it means that the team stealing will be split, potentially taking explosive damage, and they'll be interrupted. This gives your team a huge opening. In some scenarios, it's okay to allow enemies to steal if you can take the fight correctly afterwards. Sometimes it might be smarter to not focus the person stealing, but the ones defending. In essence, stalling simply gives you and your team more time. Knowing how and when to takes time and practice, but let's get into some tools that are going to help with this. For specs, Charge and Slam is great for pushing enemies off. You can also slam onto the point to knock it down, or slam from all the way above to basically just instantly delete a team that is stacked on it. We also have Winch Claw, which is a really strong spec for stalling. We can pull the cash out into an open spot to stall from. We can pull the cash out while they're stealing to interrupt it, or we can even pull the person stealing. I suggest pulling the cash out in most cases because it's a lot easier to pull off. You can also use the goo gun to create barricades made of goo in order to protect the cash out, or shoot the people stealing in order to stall them. This can be a little bit inconsistent though, so keep that in mind. For gadgets, C4 is your #1 best pick here for stalling, which is typically why a lot of high elo players run it in all of their loadouts. Placing it under the cash out is great. Tell your medium to place a jump pad a floor under to create a situation where after you blow up the C4, the cash out falls onto the jump pad and then starts jumping up and down, which just stalls it even longer. The anti-grab cube can be placed under the cash out station to lift it up in the air, making it much harder to steal. Dome shield surprisingly is a decent stall tool. Throwing it at the cash out means any enemy dome shields will just bounce right off of it, creating a small window where they can't properly set up defenses. Both pyro and explosive mines can be placed near or on the cash out, providing great stall capabilities. RPG can be a good way to drop the cash out a floor below, or simply do burst damage on point. There's plenty of ways to get in and stall, but you should almost always be the first one on your team to attempt to stall any steals. Next, we have the Protector, the reason your team doesn't die. This ties into the whole frontline role. You're going to want to get yourself in front of your teammates and keep them alive. Some specs like Mesh do this fantastically, but there's also Winch Claw that can pull enemies off of your teammates, or Charge and Slam pushing them away from your teammates. Even Goo Gun can create little walls and a lot of cover for your teammates so that they can save themselves. For gadgets, the Barricade and Dome Shield are fantastic options here. The Dome can be thrown, so consider saving your Dome to keep your mediums alive. If your healer specifically stays alive while you take damage, they can always heal you and defib you, so consider their life an extension of your own. Protect your mediums at all costs. Now last is the Shot Caller. The simple idea is, since you are the first to enter a fight, often getting really good RPG damage, potentially C4 damage, or a really nice SA-12-16 pump, the information of which target is the easiest to kill, which targets are higher or lower priority for your team, is something that you should know. So make sure when you enter a fight to make the call on which target you should all focus on, or which ones to ignore if there is a low priority target. Now let's get into some loadouts. These are by no means meant to be the best way or the only way that you can play. They're just going to be covering some different play styles in the class, and if you're trying to learn heavy, these might be a good starting point. The first is my preferred setup on heavy. It's basically known as the bunker build. So you're going to be using the Lewis, which provides great range and consistent damage. Then we're going to be bringing Mesh Shield, Barricade, and Dome Shield so that we can constantly juggle between different states of cover. Going from Mesh into a Barricade, then going into a Dome Shield. This heavily plays into the Protector role. All the cover you provide for you and your team is going to be great here. And then the RPG is going to be good for entry and exit damage. Next is the Pull and Pump Heavy. You're going to go into fights head on, Winch Claw enemies, and delete them with your SA-12-16. It's a fantastic frontline for the team, and the C4 plus the Winch means that you can stall really, really well. It's a really solid setup for basically any situation. The RPG is going to be great for entry damage, and the Dome is also going to be good for all the protecting that you're going to be doing. This, at the moment, tends to be the most popular setup for heavy in the competitive scene, and it's known as the meta heavy at the moment. So if you really want to master heavy, this at the moment is something that you should learn, but depending on when you watch this, the meta might have shifted. Last, we have the Entry Fragger. We got some range, we got some stall, we can entry well into any fight. Does a bit of everything. Charge and Slam is going to let us play in close quarters and stall a bit. The Deagles give us some range. RPG again for entry damage or finishing a target. Frag grenades are going to provide us even more entry damage, and even potentially dropping them at your feet as people are chasing you in order to turn on them and end up getting the kill. Dome Shield for everything that we've already mentioned before. I find this class pairs really well if you're running two heavies. This sort of just acts as your full-on DPS fragging type of playstyle, whereas your other heavy should be more of a defensive protector playstyle. Consider this the thick light. Now let's break down some clips and discuss how to utilize the heavy class and what it brings. All right, so in this clip, I am playing my bunker build. Things to note are essentially how I'm going to take the fight very aggressively. Whenever I start to get targeted, I am going to try to defend myself with the defensive kit that I have with Barricade, Dome, and Mesh. Anytime that they're shooting at me, I'm essentially doing my job right. I know we're all heavy, so that's kind of ideal for all of us. But the idea is that once I start taking damage, I want that. I want that attention, but I also want to survive, so I use my utility. Speaking of utility, I like to start the fight with an RPG. I get some damage, switch target because they decided to go behind cover, and I keep focusing the biggest threat to me. I place a Barricade to cover from my next biggest threat and quickly check behind me. Knowing that this player is going to come behind me, I start playing around the Barricade, set up Dome for the next fight, and then I'm able to pick off the last player. Now, another thing that you can do as heavy is enable the rest of your team. So you see here, light commit is on light. What I do is I post up next to him and I just start shooting targets with him. Now I'm able to revive him, and then from here I realize, okay, he's squishy, we have a lot of attention here, I need to just enable my light, so I just provide him a shield and simply just sit and let him fry. Just beam.
Can't see that.
I'll wait till... I'm going in. Right side, 2 range. He's going up the zip right now. Above point, orange, half HP. And as you can see, I just called each target, and I called where they were and what HP they were, as you should as the shot caller. Consider subscribing so you don't miss out on future content covering all things the finals. Thank you to all my members. Comment below what heavy class you use. Be the big beefy boy your teammates need, and I will see you in the finals.
Oh, both those orange are 1 HP.
Purple's behind this as well.
Okay.
Can't come point. I'm gonna heal off of those two.
2 bar on ping.
Going around.
He's still.
I think it's done. Yeah, it's done.
He's one shot, just melee. There we go.
The Boundless are in trouble right now. They'll need to up their game if they want to get to the next round. The Boundless are opening a vault.
GG Vicious.
Our contestants need to focus on the strengths of their team and use them to succeed.
Yeah, several minds are better than one.
Orange. I mean, purple.
He's one shot,
We're gonna see what's while open and grab ball.
Yeah. Lag.
RPG en route.
No. Oh, the jump pad. No. Disappear, bro.
For a tumultuous turn of fortune, as we've raised the damage level